Inspiration, clarity, confidence, and wholehearted business strategy. Welcome to Your Next Chapter, the podcast especially for women in their 40s and beyond who know that business and personal development go hand in hand. Tune in each week for marketing, mindset, and personal growth strategies, along with inspiring stories from women around the world who are creating new businesses and lives that are personally fulfilling and financially rewarding. If you're looking to create a business and life you love, you're in great company. Let's find out what will unfold in your next chapter. I'm your host, Angela Raspass, and I'm so delighted that you're here. Hello there, it's Angela Raspass, and welcome back to another episode in the Your Next Chapter podcast. I'm absolutely delighted that you're here to spend this time with me today, and I'm looking forward to helping you take a new look at how you can develop really powerful self-belief to help you move forward and create exactly what it is that you want to create in your next chapter business. So what we're going to be talking about today is something that you may have heard in the past, but I really want you to listen here with an open heart and mind and then commit to taking action. Because what I've found myself in my own personal development and so many conversations I've had with other women is that understanding something and knowing something is still pretty darn different to actually taking action and making change. Now, one of the biggest challenges that I've had in this journey is consistency. I can get really enthusiastic about something for 3 or 4 weeks and then it sort of fades away again. But what I've found is that if I can really motivate and inspire myself, if there's a really good reason behind something, if I really want it, then suddenly I can make things happen. And I'm guessing that's probably the same for you as well. So this episode is a really important one to open your heart and your head to as we're listening together. So the step of creating really powerful self-belief starts with awareness. Okay, self-awareness is absolutely the door that opens us to every possibility in our business and life. And in particular, what we're looking at today is the awareness of the inner voice that we have, who's running this dialogue through our life and has been there forever. Now, a lot of people refer to this inner dialogue as the inner critic, and that's absolutely what I utilize as well. Now, to me, the inner critic is the voice of your amygdala. Now, the amygdala is this little ancient, really oldest part of your brain. It's right down near the brain stem, and it's the part of your brain which is responsible for the fight and flight area. So it used to look after us extremely well when we were back in the caveman times, when you actually could get obviously eaten up if you were too far away from your tribe and your cave. It really is all about stressful situations and things that make us feel fearful and as though we're threatened. Well, so to me, the inner critic is actually the embodiment of that baseline fear, of those things that when we are stepping out of our comfort zone, that's when she kicks in. And the good news here is that if she does kick in, that's a good thing, because it means that you're not just maintaining the status quo, that you are expanding, because she doesn't get noisy unless you are. But the perspective that I have on your inner critic is that we have an absolute need to make peace with her, not to try and fight her, not to try and ignore her, but to make peace with her. Because at the end of the day, she really does have your best interests at heart. And she's operating, though, with an old script. She may be being run by stories that could have been true in the past, but are no longer reflective of the woman that you have become today. So it's really important that we update those scripts and look closely at whether or not what she is listening to and feeding back to you is correct any longer. Now, there is a lot of ways that you can actually deal with your, what I call misbeliefs. It's difficult for me to show you in this episode, but one of the things that I love to do is EFT. It's the emotional freedom technique, and it involves tapping. But that's further down the line. Before we even get to that stage, we actually need to ramp up our self-awareness so that we can recognize when our inner critic is trying to run the show as opposed to ourselves. Now, as with many of my episodes, this particular one has an extra activity that I really encourage you to do after you've listened to this particular episode. I have an inner critic quiz on my website. Now, there's many different ways or many different guises that your critic can turn up in. And I've identified that there's 5 really common ones, and it's really interesting to find out which of these critics is most likely to be exacting the biggest impact or toll on your particular business and life. So I really encourage you to go along and take the quiz and then get the exercise afterwards that gives you more information about who she is and how she turns up, and also how to make peace with her, which I'm also going to be talking to you about today. So to reach that quiz, you simply go to angelaraspass.com/inner critic quiz. So it'd be really interesting to find out who is the inner critic that's raining on your parade, and perhaps pop across to the Facebook page in the next chapter, Facebook page, and let us know who your critic is. So what you'll find is that there are 5, as I mentioned, and I'll just briefly touch on them here so you can identify if you think that there's one of them that is more like what happens with you. There certainly is one for me. So the first one is the comparison queen. And she can really rain on your parade pretty quickly. Now, even when you are creating something new or something that's pretty darn good, be it a piece of art or a new business offering, or you've even got a nice new outfit on before you're going out to an event. Now, she will leap up and compare what you have created or are doing with something else. Yeah, not too bad, I guess, but have you seen this? She likes to remind you of how you really don't measure up, that you're not enough. And she is absolutely the one that comes up most often for me. And she comes up a lot for entrepreneurs, because if you spend time on the internet and you're looking at what your competitors, inverted commas, are doing, or someone that is further down the path than you, it can really make you feel quite small. So the comparison queen is very, very common. She helps you self-sabotage and procrastinate because you don't feel that you are enough. Now, the next one that pops up very often is the people pleaser. Now, this is the one, the inner critic, that's really worried that no one will like her if she doesn't put everyone first and do the right thing, the good thing, the expected thing. And she pushes you to make decisions based on how others will perceive you and how you can best please them, as opposed to what's going on in your own heart. Now, I'm not one for stereotypes, but I do need to touch on the fact that, or cliches, but I do need to touch on the fact that this often comes up a lot if you're a mum, because we get, society rewards us for putting everybody else first. That seems to be one of the roles. And so the people pleaser can be quite ingrained in us. We can push ourselves down the priority totem pole when I really believe we are absolutely entitled to be first equal in our lives, first equal with everyone around us. So that intense need to please and care for others is what the people pleaser inner critic shows. And over time, that can really lead to resentment, definitely stress, and sometimes even depression. Introducing number 3, the perfectionist. Now, this inner critic is really harsh. She's an expert at highlighting your shortcomings and how you simply don't meet her completely unrealistic expectations. She really has a mantra of go hard or go home, and she can definitely stop you from taking a chance, putting your business out there, putting your offerings out there. If you find yourself continually tweaking things and just changing the copy, or just changing the inclusions constantly, it could be that you have a perfectionist fighting a battle inside of you. Now, the next one is the overachiever. Now, this is really how you might look as though you've got it all going on really well on the outside, but inside there's a very different dialogue going on. This is what we call the human doing rather than the human being. She cracks the whip. She's always telling you that you've got to do more, that you've got to do better. And quite often you have yourself working on several projects at once because one's just not enough. So the overachiever can feel like she's really motivating in some ways, but if you actually pause and look at what she is forcing you almost to do, it is exhausting and very difficult to have traction in your business when you're scattered in so many different areas. It's also a common form of numbing yourself, not having to think about the things that are really bothering you because your overachiever has you focused on all this stuff over here. Okay. And the 5th one that comes up a lot is the impostor. Now, this is the inner critic that has you sort of downplaying compliments like, no, it was just, anyone could have done it and I'm just lucky, or, there's nothing special. And she's really starts to make you feel that you don't deserve praise. And in fact, you might be arrogant if you actually said, you know what, I have done a good job. She often makes you fearful that someone's going to catch you out, like you don't really know what you're doing and it's only a matter of time until someone discovers that and calls you out on it. And that can really stop you connecting with clients if you don't feel that you really belong in this new area that you have stepped into. She comes up a lot. And, well, so do all of them, to be honest, but she has that particular way of thinking that I really don't know what I'm doing. So those are the 5 key inner critics that I've seen, and it'd be really interesting to find out for yourself which is the one that spends the most time in control of you. So pop over and do that quiz. Now, the next step, once you're aware of who she is we've got to become very aware of what she says to you. Now, this is all about externalizing her, because yes, she is a part of you, but she is not you. And she often, as I mentioned at the beginning, is that she's working off an old script, an old story, misbeliefs that may have been true in the past when you were younger, less experienced, or were going through other different sorts of times in your life, but not necessarily now. Now, your inner critic recycles. She doesn't have a lot of originality. She tends to say the same sort of stuff again and again. Things like, you can't do this. There's no way you can succeed. Why bother trying? It isn't going to work. It's too late. You're too old. No one's going to be interested in that. See what happened last time you did it? Haven't you seen what she's doing over there? Yada, yada, yada. You can be pretty darn sure it is your inner critic who is talking when you feel flattened and you feel discouraged, because it's her job to stop you from stepping out. It's her job to keep you safe. And to do that, she'll remind you of when things didn't go so well last time. But we're on to her, ladies. What you're looking for is that self-awareness, which I said was so important. So I want you to become very aware of the self-talk that's in your head. I literally want you to have a journal alongside you, in your handbag, on your desk, wherever. And when you hear these thoughts that are coming up in your head, write them down. There is power in that awareness. You'll start to see that the same sort of feelings come up again and again. And with that awareness, you are able to identify them as the safety calls of your inner critic, as opposed to the heart calls of your next chapter. Now, in externalizing your inner critic, I really encourage you to literally create a picture of her, and give her a name. That's another really important step. Now, and I apologize if there's anybody listening with this name. I'm not sure where it came from, but my inner critic I call Horrible Helga in High Heels, because she stomps all over the things that I want to create and do. And my weak spot is definitely the comparison queen. So have a photo of her, find something on the net, print it out, write there, these are the things that my Helga says to me. And then when they come up, you will start to have that powerful, powerful awareness that this is Helga talking, not you. Now, I've had a lot of help over the years with investing in myself, and I worked with a fantastic coach over in San Francisco who was, spiritual psychology was her area of expertise. And what she explained to me was that, and this is where the idea of making peace with your inner critic came from, that you need to befriend your inner critic, that she's actually usually quite younger and more scared than you. And it's a case of letting her know that I understand why you'd feel like that. It used to be dangerous or challenging, but it's not like that anymore. Come along with me, let me show you how. Literally to have that conversation, to pause, to breathe, to connect with that inner critic and let her know that thank you for your concern, but I'm darn well doing it anyway. Now, sometimes when she hits, it's really easy. You can do that with that self-awareness. It is enough to recognize what she's saying and to move smoothly through it. But sometimes that ain't enough. Sometimes she really is quite fierce and she can make you feel very, very wobbly. Now, that's when it's really important for you to be forearmed with a self-compassion plan. Now, self-compassion plan can have many aspects to it. It's essential that you create one for yourself so that when the proverbial hits the fan and you are feeling wobbly, there's things you can do to strengthen you so you can continue to move forward. Now, for some people, that's chocolate. Chocolate can ease a lot of ails. But on a serious note, what we're looking at here is your ability to be able to show evidence to your inner critic that you've got this. And so one of the things that comes in very handy here, and I really recommend every one of my clients has these, and I recommend you do too, is a fabulous file. Now, a fabulous file, as the name suggests, it is a file that has the evidence of how fabulous you are, how many fabulous things you have done in your life, and things that make you feel fabulous. Now, you can do a digital file here, but I've actually prefer or recommend a physical file. Mine's hot pink. It's a great big huge manila folder that sits right beside me in the drawers of my desk, and it is jam-packed with cards from my kids saying that I'm a great mum, because sometimes on this journey I don't think I do such a good job, and I need to remind myself that I'm doing well. There's testimonials there from clients who are thanking me for the work we've done together. There's me showing great big goals that I have set, and then the evidence that I've actually achieved them. There's photos of being on holiday, on doing overseas trips with some of my other entrepreneurial friends when we took off to Las Vegas and went to a conference. There's all sorts of things that reinforce for me that I'm doing okay. That there's nothing guaranteed, but I keep getting up and moving forward. So that fabulous file is where I dive if my inner critic is starting to have a field day at me. If she's making me feel too wobbly, I anchor myself in that knowledge that I am enough, and there is plenty of evidence here to refute what she's trying to say to me. So I really encourage you to get a fabulous file. Another thing that you can do and add as a part of your self-compassion plan is to identify some belief buddies. Now, belief buddies are people that are not necessarily on the entrepreneurial journey, but it's quite likely that they are, because you can have gorgeous friends around you, but who perhaps aren't starting their own business or running or expanding their own business and don't quite get the roller coaster it can be sometimes. So a belief buddy is someone on the same sort of pathway as you and who understands the vision that you are creating. Now, I'm really lucky. I've built up 4 or 5 belief buddies who I can call when I'm wobbly and ask for help. And just as importantly, when they're wobbling, they can call me and ask for help. We shore each other up, and it's a huge, huge part of this next chapter journey that I'm on, to connect with those women whom I am inspired by and hopefully are also inspiring too. So have a look around and identify who could be your belief buddies. Those are a couple of really tangible examples of what can be on your self-compassion plan, but then there's other things there that are just for you. It could be music that you play. It could be getting outside into the sun. It could be just taking some time out to have a cup of tea. It's really up to you. So you need to identify those things that lift you up emotionally when your inner critic is starting to get you down. With that self-awareness that you have, followed by that self-compassion, you can start to set your new beliefs in place. I am competent. I am doing well. I do have value. And that starts to build that self-belief muscle, that trust in yourself, that absolute understanding that you have a job role here, a difference to make in the world, a difference to make in your world. That's what I want you to really connect to. So don't try and ignore Helga. Don't try and fight her, because what you resist will persist. That's an absolute law. Instead, reassure her. Fall into the arms of your belief buddy and give yourself that evidence, that backup in that fabulous file. And before you know it, those thoughts that you now recognize as simply recycled by your inner critic will begin to fade as you replace them with this new sense of self-belief and momentum as you move forward into your next chapter. So I hope these thoughts have been helpful for you today. I really encourage you to pop on over to my website and take that inner critic quiz and see who it is that is trying to stop you from expanding into your purpose, into that fulfillment that's waiting for you in your next chapter business. And as I said, I would love to hear who your inner critic is. So a couple of places to visit today: angelaraspass.com/Inner Critic Quiz. And then on Facebook, I'd love to see you come across and join Your Next Chapter, the Facebook group where you'll find many, many other women who are also on this pathway. Come and join us and we can be your belief buddies as you're walking the journey. So this is Angela Raspass, and thank you again for spending your time with me here today, and I look forward to connecting with you again in a future episode. I'll talk with you soon. Take care. Thanks for listening to the Your Next Chapter podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please let me know. Pop over to angelaraspass.com to subscribe to the show and leave a review. And whilst you're there, you can also enjoy valuable free resources, including show notes and downloads, along with the Next Chapter community, where you can connect with other wholehearted women on the same journey as you. We'd love to welcome and support you as your next chapter unfolds. See you next time.